Thanks, Tony. It is truly a pleasure to be here in Prince George today. And I want to thank the organizers, I want to thank our customers who are here, and thank the community, not only for attending this great event, but for your shared view of transportation, the importance of a viable business entity in CN, and your continued support on innovation and technology and driving us from an historic business to something that really sets us up for the future. At CN, I had a discussion with J.J. Rouet about 6 months ago when he offered me to become the Chief Transportation Officer for CN. And it was a discussion on how to move the future. And it's so telling that we talk about the students here because they are the future. And when we talk in events like this, it's so important to resonate with every generation with a diversity of experience, a diversity of perspective, and a shared view of growing the Canadian and North American economy so that we can maintain viable jobs and wonderful communities like the one we find here in Prince George. So again, thank you for the warm welcome. I'd also like to recognize our most senior local officer in Brad Butterwick. Brad, if you could just say hello. Brad is the General Superintendent. Brad is the General Superintendent, and he lives right here in Prince George. This is his third time living in Prince George. He started off in the Union and has come back in different capacities as a manager, and now is responsible for about 600 people living and working in Prince George. And he's also responsible for a lot of the territory that we're going to be talking about here today, across northern British Columbia and down into the edges of Alberta that really create the supply chain that drive the performance of places like Prince George and Prince Rupert. But before we go any further, I also want to invite everyone to celebrate CN's 100th year as a company. That'll be in 2019. CN has officially been in business for 100 years. And in support of that, we want to move CN to and from communities all across North America. In August, we'll be in British Columbia with our Moving CN ceremony. But rather than just talk about it, I thought I'd show you a video that helps describe what we'll be doing and where it will be happening, and how we can continue to celebrate and move the nation's goods and services together. Okay. Can we advance? Thank you.
For the last century, CN has worked tirelessly to bring together people of all ages and backgrounds, to build the foundation that binds this vast and beautiful land, and to supply and share the products that fuel our society. We're proud of what we've done to connect the communities that forge this continent, and the network we've built to better serve the markets upon which our future depends. For CN's 100th anniversary, let's create something special. An experience filled with festive moments, one that highlights CN's contributions to the economy and emphasizes its constant innovation, and shows the role CN plays in North American transportation and logistics industry, and as a facilitator connecting employees, retirees, customers, and partners. CN 100, a moving celebration. This traveling event will bring to life these connections between people, places, and products. Throughout the year, CN's Moving Celebration will stop in towns and cities across Canada and the US, generating magical encounters and unique moments, unloading cutting-edge containers filled with interactive, educational, and entertaining experiences. They'll showcase the people and history of CN and educate and inspire children of all ages. They'll set a communal table filled with food and drink from every coast, and they'll build buzz at every stop with artists and performers that will have us singing and dancing. CN's Moving Celebration will be a place to discover, learn, and exchange ideas, to make new contacts and partnerships. It will be an opportunity to create new conversations and start a dialogue about CN's next 100 years. We can't wait to see you all there.
You're all invited, and we look forward to seeing you in the PNE in Vancouver in August of this year. So back to the business. You know, CN is an icon in the transportation industry, and there's no more telling perspective of that other than to look at the map. And it's one of the most unique transportation companies in North America and in the world because we touch 3 oceans in 3 major areas within North America. On the West Coast, we connect Prince Rupert to the world and Vancouver to the world. On the East Coast, Halifax, Montreal, Quebec City all link the Atlantic. And as we move down towards the southern United States, Mobile, Alabama, and Baton Rouge, New Orleans, all those key ports into the US Gulf Coast. And really, to me, that becomes the front door of the US economy. We have a widely diverse portfolio. And when we look at that, it gives us a good sense of what we're doing within the community. No one commodity, no one end user is more than 25% of the business. And so it gives us resilience within the economy, but it also creates a narrative of always having to look to improve in order to continue to be viable against those streams. And if I look back at my career, starting in Ontario, and the pulp and paper business in Eastern Canada and what's become of it, some have read as well the automotive industry in Oshawa and other places, you know, going through some very difficult times. But still, CN finds ways to work within the communities, to work within the businesses, and find ways to not only support the existing economy, but also develop new viable ways of shipping products and finding development of products so that we can continue to foster the diverse portfolio and the strength of CN. We do it with an eye to safety. There's nothing more important at CN than the value of safety. And we do it across a number of streams, always anchored by our people, process improvement, technology, and investment. And I really want to talk about some of those investments today in all of those streams because it's how we maintain our viability, it's how we maintain our social license to operate, and honestly, that's how we attract the next generation of railroaders and customers willing to ship and put their reputations on our lines as we transit their goods to market. You know, our social commitment also extends to sustainability, and that is one of the highest priorities we have. We already have a very competitive advantage as far as our footprint on the economy. Rail is one of the most efficient ways of transporting goods. It has one of the smallest carbon footprints. It allows us to recycle almost everything we consume. And where we can't recycle, we replenish. So over the last, I would call it less than a decade, we've planted over 2 million trees across North America. Really, that almost represents the amount of cross ties that we use to build and support our railways with every year. The underpinning of this investment is our capital spends. The railway business is a high fixed asset environment. And to be able to remain viable, we have to spend. And we spend it as our first call for cash. CN self-funds our CapEx, and we maintain that structure across how we see our business. You can see that in the last several years, we've just ratcheted up our spend. Last year, we spent 25% of our revenue, almost 50% of our operating income reinvested into CN. Now, that comes in a lot of forms. That comes in the form of supporting our customers through investments to better service people at first mile or last mile facilities. It comes in the form of attracting and retaining the right kind of people. You know, Brad and I yesterday met with our mechanical department, both the car department that fix and maintain our box cars and fleet, and the locomotive team. And I have to tell you, I was so proud of that locomotive team when we were in their shops. They've modernized the shops in Prince George. They've attracted a number of people. I think half of the people we talked to yesterday had less than 1 year. Some had as much as 7 years of service. A lot came from other industries in oil and gas or electronics, but they were attracted to CN because of our continued investment in them, in the infrastructure, and in the community. We also have some big challenges in front of us. A big portion of our capital spend last year was to support positive train control. That's a regulated mandate in the United States to find a way to automate the safe stopping of a train. At CN, we're spending about $1.5 billion to develop our own positive train control. And we'll be looking at not only creating the safer environment through positive train control, but also learning to leverage that investment and spin it into other automations or improvements on how we see processes or structural changes that need to support the business on a go-forward basis. If you bring it down a little more locally, we've spent last year almost $400 million just in track capacity, just in Western Canada. And that may not seem glamorous or seem tangible, but if you look at a city with high congestion and building a ring road, whether it's the Anthony Henday that circles Edmonton, or the ring roads around Calgary, or even the 407 in Toronto that takes away the core congestion of a major community. That's effectively what we're doing in Western Canada. We've seen tremendous growth and in Western region. And so we need to build either sidings so we can have more train meets, or where sidings have just not been able to keep up with the flow, start to connect the sidings and make what we call double track. So effectively adding an additional lane on a highway to support the fluidity and speed and velocity of our fleet, and to further support our precision railroad model. As I said, we've hired a number of people. Almost 26% more conductors are on the property, fully trained, ready to support the business this winter than we had at the same time last year. Our locomotives that we've brought on, we've purchased 140 locomotives this year. Most of them are going to be here in the first half of the year. And this complements the over 130 locomotives we brought on towards the latter part of winter last year, really increasing our locomotive fleet. But it doesn't stop there, because our capital investment also extends to the shops that maintain them. And so we've seen that investment convert into greater reliability, less breakdowns, and more availability from a maintenance perspective. One of the really cool things that I think on this slide is that we're also responding to the needs of the customers. Last year, we listened and we heard forest products tell us, we don't have enough fleet. We don't have enough boxcars. What can you do about that? Well, we went out and we purchased over 1,000 new center beams. Those center beams are built in Canada. They come from Canadian steel, they come from Canadian manufacturers, mostly around Hamilton, Ontario, and we're starting to see more and more of those cars come into our fleets. And in addition to that, over 500 new high-capacity grain cars are going to be released throughout the winter here from Hamilton, and again, support the farmers and support the movement of grain to and from the ports. 500 of those will be on before the end of the first half this year. We do play a big role in British Columbia. And one of the things we're really proud of is the investment that we make to support the over 2,400 people who work here. We spend almost $500 million locally when we invest in our basic capital, our training, our local spend, our tax dollars, all of those things that make us really a good corporate citizen as far as I'm concerned. We try as much as we can to spend locally and to support local economies as we play the role to develop the natural resources or the other commodities that flow and mostly originate in British Columbia. Nothing's more apparent of a success story than Prince Rupert. Prince Rupert, some will say, it's our hidden gem. I say it's not hidden at all. It's the only port in North America that, despite recession in the early parts of the 2000s, grew at double digits consistently. And you can see the volumes that Prince Rupert has achieved. And that's not easy. But it's also, to me, a statement of confidence in the people in this room and the people in boardrooms across Canada that realize the competitive advantage that Prince Rupert presents. And Prince Rupert has gone from basically being just a part of the portfolio of CN to representing over 7% of our business. Vancouver is always going to be a major trade center for Canada. $1 in $3 are spent in, $1 of $3 of trade comes through Vancouver. And the reality is we have a lot of goods that start and end across North America in Vancouver. And we see and we applaud the Canadian government and various levels of government to recognize the need to continue to invest in major projects to create more capacity in Vancouver and make the supply chain more efficiently. But it doesn't end or start with CN. It's an all-encompassing view of how together do we need to work and collaborate to make Vancouver the most efficient it can be. We invest in technology to deliver responsibly and to make our employees a lot more viable and engaging, and that's something that we'll always continue to do. And one of the things that is most telling is that CN has worked independently to develop a concept of moving crude in solid form. You may have heard about Canapucks and how it is something that can be almost moved in break bulk rather than in tank cars. And we did it in response to a need in Canada to ship crude with an eye to how we can innovate and bring the power of innovation to this commodity. And it's not an academic enterprise. There's a true and real commercial need to do this. And we're working across levels of government with First Nations organizations and a multitude of customers in order to support this and bring it to market. In summary, CN is proud of our role in the British Columbia economy and the economy of North America. We're proud to be a partner in communities like Prince George and across Canada. And we want to thank you for your continued support, your continued business, and your continued push to help us improve and respond to the emerging conditions across our economy and across our countries. Thank you.